better than our own. Yes, we are recording, as I'll tell you. Janet Fenton, our own WILPF Janet Fenton, is going to address what are the feminist approaches to challenging this increasingly militarized world. Now, if you've read the introduction, Janet has an amazing CV, a long experience. She's a Scottish Quaker, an eco-feminist, active in disarmament, she says, since 13 years old. In the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, ICAN, since its inception, and she spent a decade as coordinator of the Peace and Justice Scotland. She's been engaging with the newly devolved Scottish Parliament. WILPF has a foot in the door there since it was set up. She's active in WILPF, in Trident Ploughshares, in Scottish CND, and many more organisations. And that's her background. We've got 90 minutes for her to speak and to give us plenty of time to discuss what she's saying and what our own ideas are. And as you've heard, the meeting is being recorded. So over to you, Janet.
Okay. Fiona, if you can put that first slide up, that would be...
You should be able to see it now. Oh, sorry, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. You can see it.
I want slideshow. No, I can't change. Is that okay?
That's fine. I mean, it's
great.
just a reference. When this idea, when the proposal to talk about this came up, I was very pleased because I really do feel that we've got to take hold of this conversation. I'm very aware that one of the great things that happened with the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, and a large part of why it succeeded in getting a treaty in writing that's supported by the majority of the world's states, was because we took hold of the conversation instead of responding to the idiotic things these guys were saying. And thanks to our wonderful, wonderful colleague in Reaching Critical Will, Ray Atchison, the feminist agenda was in with the bricks on that. I don't mean just Ray, but she has always been so articulate on it. And the resistor picture on the slide is Ray's picture, and I remember seeing that at an early stage of that campaign. And my middle daughter, who's currently active in Cornwall on the climate, travelling people, various other campaigns, she sent me this 10 lessons slide yesterday, and it made me laugh, particularly her message about how much she likes otters. But I just thought it makes perfect sense, and it's really important lessons that feminists don't need to learn. They know this stuff. We all know it. We have it in our bones, but we forget that it's part of our expertise, which we really, really need at this stage. That when we're critiquing stuff, we're critiquing to build things, not to tear them down. We need to organize, not just argue with people. It's movements that win, and it's not just individuals. And we've seen that over and over again. Perfection is the enemy of progress. When we try and get our social media or our slides or whatever it is looking absolutely beautiful, then, you know, to the extent that we don't get it out there, that's when we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And one of the reasons sometimes for doing that is ego, and ego kills movements for change. We need to meet people where they are instead of expecting them to come to us. If I hear somebody else saying, how can we get young people to join our movement? Again, I'm going to have a hairy fit. We need to meet people where they are. Power, the powerful, they don't care about our feelings. So there's no point in boning on about that to them. Division is the weapon that they use. The elites use the weapon of division to get people to be, that should be allies, working against each other. Climate change activists working against nuclear disarmament activists. Strong feminists that want to protect safer spaces, having fights with people that are supporting trans rights. All this stuff, it's got to stop, you know. So that's what I was wanting to say, because I was so pleased that these two messages seemed so resonant to what we're doing. And I thought it would be useful to just, you can take that slide down now if you want.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
That's fine.
To just run through what those women did in 1915, because far too easily we end up having the conversation that foreign policy, so-called political security experts want us to have, instead of relying on the really good sense and careful thinking that's already been done and that we know is right. So the 21 resolutions, and I'm just going to run through them very quickly. But the first one was to protest at the reckless sacrifice of human life. Now, I do think we probably do that, but we're very often too busy blaming people to just actually say how absurdly dangerous and awful that is. Opposition to the idea that women are in some way vulnerable and they need to be protected, and they're protected in war, by wars. Wars are supposed to protect us vulnerable women. And over again, that's been proved to be absolute. I've just read a book about the use of rape as a weapon of war in Tigray, and those women certainly weren't protected. 3 was the peace settlement, expressing sympathy with the suffering of others, whatever their nationality, because there are no irreconcilable difficulties. They face the same challenges and the same problems, whether they're two opposing groups of women on different sides of a civil war, or whether they're Russian women and American women. We've proved this over and over again. Peace needs to rely on the principles of justice, equality between men and women, and referring future international disputes to a conference of governments. That was what they asked for. And to some extent we got it. We got the League of Nations, and then we got United Nations. But they basically shut the women out and didn't do it properly, as we know from the very get-go, from the Treaty of Versailles, which contained the seeds of the Second World War. Continuous mediation, that's number 4. Continuous mediation to be offered by neutral nations, and that they will ask for suggestions from the belligerent ones. Number 5 was that all people have the right to self-determination, and that includes the consent of both men and women. And that's one that's quite close to my heart, because I don't think we have that in Scotland. But there are a lot of other places where it's affecting people much more seriously. Number 6 is arbitration and conciliation every time, always. That's the first place you go. International agreements should be based on social, moral and economic principles. That's number 7. And number 8 is the democratic control of foreign policy, including equal control by women and by men. And thinking back to the Iraq War, what happened then? Well, there certainly wasn't any democratic control. And it's been proved that it was illegal, it was wrong, and it was completely fruitless. The enfranchisement of women can lead to their input to peace negotiations, and it's necessary for their full input to peace negotiations. And a new conference needs to take place annually, or in some kind of ongoing way, a society of nations with arbitration, a court of justice, a permanent council of conciliation. Now, we've kind of got that in a way with United Nations, except that, again, that it's run almost exclusively by men in all the senior diplomatic posts. So it's not actually hearing all the voices. Number 12, which is particularly close to my heart this week, is general disarmament beginning by governments taking over the manufacture of arms and munitions and international control of traffic of these and prevention of accruing profit from them. And can you imagine if that had been adopted from 1915, the world we'd be living in today, because it would be very, very different in terms of who has the power and control and who has control of the resources that everybody needs. Number 13 is liberty of commerce with trade routes open and investors from one state carrying any risk of investing in the resources of another state, instead of going into countries, extractive mining and impoverishing other countries. All secret treaties to be voided, to be treated as not valid, and participation by all states to be ensured when countries are making treaties, and women should be included in all the deliberations for treaties. Women to share in civil and political rights and responsibilities, the education of children to direct their thoughts and desires towards constructive peace building. 17 is after the war, all parliaments should pass a resolution extending the franchise to women, which of course didn't happen at the end of the First World War. 18 was for women to be equally included in the composition of any peace settlement after the war. And as I've said, the Treaty of Versailles, they managed to leave us out and make a hames of it. 19 was for women to be included in all proposals presented to the Conference of Powers. And 20 is the one that we're all very familiar with about the envoys to governments from women from belligerent countries and vice versa. So belligerent countries going to the neutral countries and women from neutral countries speaking to the leaders of the belligerent countries. Those envoys should negotiate and report their findings to the International Women's Committee for Constructive Peace, which would be a significant committee that took major responsibility for women's part in whatever general security measures were laid out by whether it's United Nations or whether it was the League of Nations. So there is not a single one of these resolutions from that time that don't make absolute and perfect sense today. And we are mostly reasonably familiar with some of them, and we can get our heads around the rest of them. They're all very easy to find and make yourself familiar with, make your own notes, find your own ways of expressing them, and try and bring them into every conversation that you have about peace and about making peace, because those women really achieved something phenomenal with those 21 resolutions, and we're crazy not to utilize that and to allow ourselves to be dragged into stupid discussions about whether no first use is better than negative security assurances, when obviously the primary thing is to get rid of the weapons, stop fighting, stop treating the idea of a guy telling a bunch of guys to go and kill everybody as supposed to be some kind of response to ideological differences. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So time now, any other time, it's always been necessary to do that, but the time right now this is reaching close to the point when we are liable to destroy human life on this planet. And it could happen relatively slowly through climate change burning us up, in which case those of us of a certain age can be assured that our grandchildren being born this year will not live to the age we are now. So we can accept that, or we can fight the good fight to restore planetary order and to deal with the real threat to humanity of climate change. Of course, it could happen much more quickly than that. Those of you that have read Annie Jacobson's book on the possibility, the scenario she presents as to how a nuclear war could start, will realize that any mistake, accident, deliberate use of a nuclear weapon pretty much anywhere on the planet by any of these crazy guys is likely to lead to an immediate escalation, and the life would be unlivable on the planet as we presently know it within about a week. So there's, you know, we need to get on with this stuff. So my kind of example text, because that was what was before me, and that was what I was working on when we first had this conversation about doing a webinar around this particular topic, was what I did in response to the UK's Strategic Defence Review, so-called. And if you're happy with me to do that, I would like to sort of run through my thinking in creating the document that Secure Scotland used for that, but very much from a feminist and WILPF-informed position. Just before I do that, I will say that I do a lot of things for a lot of different groups. As Sheila said when she gave me that very generous introduction, I work with a lot of different peace groups. But that's because I feel that the problems that we're facing are part and parcel of the same thing with all of them. It's the same bad guys that are wanting to burn the place up with fossil fuels and oil. It's the same crazy people that are wanting us all slagging each other off on social media and using up all the resources of the planet with their overblown and absurd wealth. It's the same people that are investing in nuclear weapons. The military action has the heaviest carbon footprint of anything. So it's basically all the same bad guys. And we are crazy if we don't recognize that, and if we don't work wherever we can, and whether it's our home organization or whether it's somebody that we're in an alliance with, or whether it's somebody new that we're trying to learn more about another aspect of this from. So although I wrote this for Secure Scotland, it's very much with my WILPF heart deeply entrenched in it. So the Defence Review expressed irresponsible, opportunistic and delusional plans. The document lays out what I think is hopefully a completely unachievable plan for an even more hostile, aggressive and colonialist set of behaviours that will do nothing to address the climate change. The climate emergency will do nothing to deal with historical transnational ideological difference, will do nothing to address the starvation, homelessness and gendered violence, because these are the things that offer the real threats to people. When they talk about threats to people, they're talking about a war society and being ready for a war society. That's not where the threats are coming from. And what has been proved since the First World War, through the Second World War, through the Cold War, and up until the situation that we're in now, is that the more weapons people get, the more dangerous they become, the less likely it is that they're going to resolve anything. And that's been proved again and again and again. So when we say that stuff, what we need to do is ensure that we have the evidence to back that kind of statement up. And so I remember the day that it came out, and as it happened, I don't normally do this, but I had the FTSE was on my phone, and it was soaring. Babcock were rubbing their hands with the price of their shares rising. You know, it's so obvious. The media are raking out old retired generals and admirals and asking them to quote, and they just relish the idea of getting younger and fitter men than they are to have a square go at somebody. And the extreme and ugliest manifestations of human cruelty are utilized to egg us on for more and more slaughter. That is not a way to defend the ordinary citizens of the country. And there are enormous resources that are available that disprove that. I mean, I'm looking at my own notes here from doing that, but on the 1st of June, Babcock was seen as one of the big winners in the Strategic Defence Review that was published on Monday. They'll be able to highlight the opportunities in it, and you'll have heard all this from the steam radio and the dreadful BBC already about how the Strategic Defence Review is going to create more jobs. Doing what? Making the world a more dangerous place? Is that the work that needs to be done? Is it not resolving the energy crisis and finding better ways to protect the environment, look after our children and our elderly, invest in the health service? And so each time you say something like that, you need to find a way of doing some very basic research and storing up the facts on what the truth really is so that you can back up your argument every time. The whole thing about Faslane in the Strategic Defence Review suggests that they're going to get 12 new submarines. They can't pay for the ones they've got. They can't even take to bits the ones that are out of commission. And we've got the evidence for that. We have wonderful organisations like Scientists for Global Responsibility and the Nuclear Information Service who've laid all this stuff out. So when you're thinking these thoughts about how it doesn't make sense, look for the sources, store up the facts, and be ready to quote them. And when you hear somebody coming away with this nonsense, be ready to come back to them and to challenge them on what they're actually saying. The catastrophic consequences of nuclear weapons cannot be adequately addressed. They transcend national borders, pose grave implications for human survival, the environment, social economic development, the global economy, food security, and the health of current and future generations, and have a disproportionate impact on women and girls, including the result of ionizing radiation. And that's all written by scientists, and you can find that information on the Reaching Critical Will website and many other places. When they talk about making this a warlike nation and we need to be ready for war, we can say, is Ireland ready for war? Because they seem to be in a better socio-economic state than we are in this country, and they've signed the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Not only have they signed it, but they've put it into their own national legislation to the extent that nobody else can go to Ireland and have anything to do with nuclear weapons. And if they do, the law in Ireland states that they could go to prison for the rest of their lives. And this information, again, it's all in the public domain. And whenever you hear somebody saying stuff like that, you can check it out and find it, and we can share these kind of resources and make them available through our own website, through our own local groups, to each other in whatever ways are possible. Another one that the Strategic Defence Review suggests is that in some way there's an independent nuclear weapon in the UK, which is a joke. There's no such thing. And we all know there's no such thing. Most of us do. Anyone that's done anything on nuclear disarmament over the last 3 or 4 years will already know that. And it's very easy to find the hard evidence for that and to be able to present it. When they talk about introducing nuclear power, because they think it's going to help us resolve the energy crisis, and we dig out the fact that they themselves are saying that the nuclear technology, they can't get people to work on the boats, they can't get people to work on the warheads, they don't have the technical expertise, students are not going into that area of study. All of these things can be backed up. And if you know it, but you don't know how to back it up, there will be somebody else that does, and you can open up to them. You can open up on the WILPF mailing list. You can contact me if it's about ICAN and the international movement. You can contact the Nuclear Information Service if it's about the costs or the techie stuff about the weapons, or Scientists for Global Responsibility, which Fiona's part of. You could ask Fiona and she'll dig out the relevant report for you, you know. But we really, really, I cannot stress strongly enough, and I mean, it does, this is sounding like a bit like a one idea rant, but it's a wee bit more than that. The thing is that we absolutely have to keep saying to them, what you're doing doesn't work. You're saying you're defending us, but what has actually happened every time that you've increased the weapons, that you've got more, the idea of going up to 5% and cutting international aid, where do you think the enemies of the state actually come from? If there are enemies of the state from outside the state, why are they the enemies of the state? Is it because we're looking after them? Is it because we're helping them when they are running into difficulties in getting the resources that they need to feed their people? Or is it because we're continually oppressing them and robbing their resources for our own ends and to make us richer and them poorer? So all of these things really fall back on us coming forward with really strong arguments to prevent that. And I think I would quite like to, if I may, Fiona, if you can give me the third slide.
Third slide.
And I'll just run through that because I think it probably explains a bit more about how I think we can go about this.
Bear with me.
So, because there are always ways of going about it. And one of the things that's really important is to be working in groups and remembering that first slide, it's movements that make change. It's not individuals. So what I've got here is these are some kind of, I don't know what you'd call them, but talking points, messaging. These are principles that I try and use when I'm thinking about how to work on a new campaign or a new element in a campaign. And the first one is do the easy stuff first, always. Don't try and get into a big argument with some intellectual so-called military expert who's completely sexist in their views and is never going to change their mind anyway. Don't start there. Do the easiest stuff first. And I mean, actually, it was very interesting today, you know, because what I'm doing mostly at the moment is with Secure Scotland, and it's running this centre, which is one of our projects. We have a centre here in Edinburgh, and it's been so busy since the situation has developed after the Hamas attack. There's just people coming in who are very often just in despair, and they just want to come in and meet some like-minded people and feel a bit better about it. And we do a lot of different things, like having vigils, talking to people, listening to them, putting them in touch with folks, raising money for medical aid for Palestinians, bringing young people from the synagogue together with Palestine campaigners. We've got a thing going on at Ian Murray, the Secretary of State for Scotland's office, which is just along the road from us. So we keep going along and chalking challenging statements on the ground outside his office and sending him letters and petitions and stuff from the shop. He doesn't respond, but he gets them. So, but that is quite easy to do. But the stuff that really makes a difference is encouraging those who actually agree with us. Most people, even people that say, oh, you're daft, or go and get a haircut, or go and get a job, or whatever they're saying about peace people, they actually agree with us. Most of them do. And very often their problem is that they've lost faith rather than anything else. So you don't really want to antagonize them. You want to encourage them. So if we encourage people like that to read a book, to join a group, take part in an action, we can and we will build more consensus more effectively than if we start in by arguing with prejudiced and entitled people who have a great deal to lose if we wake up and start withdrawing our consent to what the government is doing. Which brings me on to being respectful and factual. And I know I quite often say quite angry things about individuals in the government, but I do try and avoid making personal or inflammatory comments when I'm in dialogue with anybody. And I mean, it's one of the things you kind of have to do if you're working at the UN. But it undermines credibility. It alienates potential allies, and you never quite know who your potential allies are. So if you're respectful and treat their opinions with respect, even if you disagree with them, you're leaving the door open for another time. Also, building relationships with journalists, with politicians, with publishers, with people that have influence on social media, people that can help you. Try and build relationships with them as far as you possibly can. I know Sheila's very good at doing that, for example, and it's been of great value to WILPF. But I think that in doing that, you can sometimes get some real surprises when people will make a turnaround that you weren't expecting. But if you've been really rude to them at some point, or told them that they're stupid for thinking what they think, that's not going to happen, Challenging disinformation in the media is critical. And very often I think, if I comment on when people put stuff at the end of a Substack or at the end of a post on social media or on the end of a position statement that we've made on the website of Secure Scotland, I'm not really replying to that person if I answer it. I'm talking to the people who are looking over that person's shoulder. And I think that's really, really important to do that. And so when you're challenging disinformation in the media, that is one of the things that you're doing, and you need to be aware of that. Whether, you need to choose which way you respond. And it may be that you simply request a retraction or a correction if they've come out with something that is absolute rubbish. But you absolutely have to have the citation and the evidence to back up your perspective if you're going to do that. A letter to the editor can offer a different or an alternative view, which is a softer approach. Social media memes that can make people laugh or see the absurdity of something that somebody said, poking a bit of fun but not being too unkind to them. There's also radio phone-ins. I think radio phone-ins are great. Anytime that you hear somebody talking rubbish on the radio, which happens quite a lot on Radio 4, actually, I'm sorry to say. But if it's a phone-in and you can phone up and you've got the evidence at your fingertips, you don't need to give that away to whoever answers the phone, because if you give too much away, you won't get on the program. But if you've got that ready, it's really, really helpful, because, again, on the principle of not the person you're talking to, but the person that's listening, the over-the-shoulder kind of thing. But you do need to have that cast iron information, and you need to feel confident, especially with the radio. The more you do it, the more confident you become. And of course, if you take direct action for something, that is one of the ways to empower yourself to feel that you can be as cheeky as you like. So promoting positive criticism, very often you see some new information that may be negative, or it may actually be positive information, it may be useful, but check it out. Make sure that the information that you're passing on is always reliable and trustworthy, and focus on solutions. Get your information from reliable and trustworthy sources. Sometimes they may include the same sources that you're actually challenging, like that thing that I was saying about the submariners and it being difficult to recruit people. But when they say it themselves, we're having difficulty recruiting people, so we're getting people that are working on nuclear power. That is a complete own goal as far as they're concerned, and you can use that. But there may be other information where you can advocate for a positive and a different way of approaching the thing. And on the jobs front, I think it's always important to talk about the work that needs to be done for society, rather than the jobs that a particular organization can create, because that's kind of where it really matters. And that is part of the feminist approach of bringing everybody with you, and supporting the whole community, and recognizing that horses have courses and people have differing needs and differing strengths, and we can all help each other. But if we can stop using force as a go-to solution to every difference that arises, then we will just increase the amount of force that is used until we reach the point that we destroy ourselves. And we need to keep saying that to these guys over and over again, because they cannot deny that that is what's happened since the beginning of time, or the beginning of humans on the planet, as far as I can see. So, I mean, I know that's a load of information. I don't know whether you want to leave that one up, or whether I wanted to make sure that I hope I haven't spoken too quickly, because I do hope that I've said enough to ensure that we get a good bit of interactive discussion going now, if possible, please. Sheila, pass back to you.
Well, thank you so much. Just what I was hoping but fearing we couldn't have. I'm still under the duvet, and worrying and listening to the news and so on. But you've given us strength that we should have in ourselves to be able to move forward and start the act of challenging. So thank you so much. And let's see what we've got in the way of contributions and questions. If you can indicate one way or the other, use the react button, because if we haven't got you all on the screen, can you see everyone, Fiona?
I'll have to stop screen sharing if I'm going to see
Yeah,
anybody,
fine.
Janet. Yeah.
I
think we're probably more or less on one screen.
Pardon?
I think we're probably more or less. There's 23 of us in the room.
Right.
So we might be two screens.
Yeah. You haven't stopped screen sharing yet, have you?
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Well, you could. I mean, I'm thinking that's quite short. I should have thought of this, but we could just put it in the chat if it's useful for people.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's quite a few people who we aren't seeing to make up this 23. And they have to make themselves known if they want to speak. So let's see who's got a contribution.
Judith has a hand raised.
Okay, Judith, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. That was very interesting. You mentioned about the importance of having the facts at one's fingertips when one is challenging militarism in its many forms or whatever. And you did mention scientists for global responsibility. I'm afraid that I missed some of the other sources that you mentioned that one could fall back on when you're looking for evidence to challenge people. And I wondered if you could either put them in the chat or speak to them, tell us a little bit more about how to go about finding information to back up one's doubts about certain statements, for example.
Yeah. I'm just putting 2 in the chat now. I've just said reaching, but it should be reaching.
Reaching Critical Will, of course, is WILPF's own international portal. And
there's very good resources available there.
You also mentioned the Nuclear Information Service.
Yeah.
Put them in the chat and follow them up, Judith. I'm calling Kayet.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Kate.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, you can't hear me?
Yes,
we can
Yes,
hear
I
you.
can hear
We
you.
can't see you.
Yep.
Oh,
Can't
okay.
see you.
Yeah, because I look terrible.
I'm sure you don't.
Oh, honestly.
I've never seen you look terrible.
No.
Let's hear what you've got to say.
Yes. Well, I am absolutely thrilled, that you've mentioned, this new way of trying to tackle this very serious issue. And I have had a lot of interest, and because, I've not been well, I had the pleasure of, communicating with so many different organizations, especially, what was happening in Africa and in the Middle East, with all this violence and also aid money being transferred, to be empowering different curious governments, with weapon and armament gear, and also drone and things like that. And I felt, whatever campaigning which was being done was a little bit smooth, it wasn't strong enough, and somehow politicians don't seem to pay a lot of attention. And I think what Janet said, starting slow, because if we try to go with a forceful idea, we don't know where we are going to end up. But, to try and get more and more people, some of these conscious media, they do have a good campaigning strategy, without being violent, without being aggressive. They do put their idea across, maybe networking with this kind of conscious people, and also to try and see, what kind of campaign has been successful to get the government's ears, because there has been a small amount of active actions, from some of the politicians, whether it's in America or in this country or in Europe, where they've become the voice. So I do agree, and I really think time has come, where very open and strong opposition, against weapon, because the misery in the world is unbearable. So I feel very strongly that, WILPF can do, because with all the experience, WILPF can do much more, I think. You have also the access and the influence,
Thank you.
Nobody would ask question, your motives, because they know what you've been doing.
Thank you, Kea. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Can I just respond to that by it's very, very difficult to be informed about everything. And the most important part of that is to use our network to do that. I mean, that is very much what ICAN did in terms of getting the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, was actually listening to the people that were directly affected. And my point of entry in WILPF was around the time that UK WILPF had the Voices of African Women project, very much as a key project. And I learned so much from Marie Claire and other women that were involved in that project. And interestingly enough, I've got a comparatively new volunteer, except I think she's going to be more than a volunteer. I think she's going to be part of the core group soon, who is very knowledgeable about the war in Tigray. And she's also very imaginative in the things that she's thinking that we can do to draw attention to that. And I mean, that's been that Kea, you'll know about that. I didn't, but I mean, the situation there is more, its recent history runs alongside of the establishment of Secure Scotland. I cannot believe that I didn't know anything about it, and I'm so grateful to this Anna, who's been in our shop and given me so much information about it. And we're now working on trying to get an event to as a memorialization of Live Aid 40 years ago, when the people were starving to death in the same place for similar reasons. But anyway, that's the kind of thing, and I think you're absolutely right that we need to be listening to each other more, and providing one another with what expertise we do have in our own particular areas of understanding.
I would like to mention something on the Tigrayan question, because I have been very much involved when they were struggling in the Sudan because of my adopted father when they first started, because I was under the impression they were against the military government, who was brutal, you know, really brutal government, who've been committing all kinds of atrocities, genocide, and also the war in the north, because with the Tigrans, they've got a solid story, you know, of suffering under the military government with the rest of Ethiopians. It wasn't uniquely for Tigrayans, but it was the whole of Ethiopia. But once they got into power, they were the first people who portrayed, you know, who committed the worst kind of crime, not the ordinary, you know. There are two parts. There are those victims, Tigrayan victims, who didn't share the power or the money aspect of it, you know, because the Tigrayan group, they're called Wayanis. The atrocities they've committed is unbearable, you know. Even genocide, you know, watch this organization and also some of the organizations, they've got a very clear record of the atrocities the Tigrayan group of people who took power, who've committed. But the Tigrayan people, like the Israeli Jewish, you know, they didn't have the voice to be part of the Ethiopian campaign. In fact, you know, they've contributed also without wanting, without even believing what was happening. And now they've joined again with the Oromo group to commit the same suicide, the same genocide against the Amharas. So when it comes to the Tigrayan, I think I've had with Wilf, you know, some conversation about that, which I felt very strongly. And we need to do a bit more homework, because for the Tigrayans, there are parts of the Tigrayan issue Wilf can pick up, but at the same time, to know also the crimes which has been committed as a Tigrayan government against Ethiopia for 30 years. It's not a 2 years issue. Now the Oromos, they've pushed to take power. He's gone against the Amharas, against the Tigrayans. So there is a highly complicated issue when it comes to the Tigrayan issue, or Oromo for that matter. These two tribes, you know, they've committed, you know, unbelievable atrocity in Ethiopia. So that needs to be, you know, assessed before you can put, you know, the flag up on behalf of just Tigrayan without being informed.
I think that I mean, this is exactly the kind of conversation that we need to have, and I probably shouldn't have raised it in this meeting. It was just because it was an example of information where I'm learning, and it's new information to me that I'm learning at this point in time, and that's what we all need to be able to do, and to talk to one another respectfully.
Yes.
So, you know, let's put that as something that, you know, we need to be better informed about across the board. And
Yes.
certainly the Anna's experience and some of the stuff that I've had access to being able to read is very, very distressing and alarming. But I'm aware that the whole point about that is that violence breeds nothing but more violence.
Yes.
Rape as a weapon of war leads to nothing but suffering, you know. So
Yes.
you know, we don't really want to I wouldn't take a position on Tigray or anything else around Eritrea apart from and Ethiopia, except to say that I don't know nearly enough. You know, that's that's where I'm at with it. So,
yes, I
but,
just
I
want
mean,
to make one comment. Even
yes.
with the Amhara, for example, you know, the Amharas are the ones who've been suffering for the last since
I think that
1974. Yeah, but
we
I
need,
just want to make a point so you understand me. I don't want any misunderstanding. That's why.
no,
Even with the Amharas, there are the Amharas who've been suffering, but also there are the Amharas who were committed. You see, that's why I don't support or I don't even send any money, because as an Amhara, there I'm expected. I'm in fact blacklisted because I don't want to get involved, you know, in supporting because it's highly complicated. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
yes, thank you for that, Care. I think we need to think more generally, and I'm looking for someone else who wants to contribute and put their hand up. Fiona?
I, Janet, really welcomed you reading the 21 resolutions that our foremothers produced, because what is staggering, actually, and somewhat appalling, that they still are utterly, utterly relevant, because we still have militarism, arms manufacturers, arms trades, nuclear weapons in the world. We've got a more dangerous world than they had then, because what was then were traditional weapons. And we know that they caused enough devastation. And now we've got the capability to do so much worse. And we need those resolutions to live by as feminists.
I'm so pleased to hear you say that. I love the 21 resolutions.
Yes, exactly.
And I want to talk to Helen Kay about them at some point as well, but that's another story. Is she in the meeting?
Yes, she's in the meeting. Yeah.
She's in
Yeah.
the meeting, yes. Can we have Helen Martins now?
Thank you, Janet. It was fantastically wide-ranging talk. Really, really appreciated that. Going back to the 21 resolutions, I think number 12 was about arms control. And we have the spectre in a few weeks of the next International Arms Fair in London. And we have the sort of nonsense where we've written, as WILPF, we've written to Sadiq Khan. And after about 3 months, his office has written back and said, oh, Sadiq Khan is really against having all these arms fairs in our big city. There's no place for it, but we'll do nothing about it, and says that the Excel Centre where it all happens is not under his jurisdiction. And it just seems such a nonsense. So we're kind of preparing to go and make our presence felt, but it just feels like such a challenge, really. I remember last time, 2 years ago, a woman just walked past with a toddler in a pushchair, and despite being in front of the Excel Centre and kind of warships in the water, wasn't aware that this is an arms fair. And all these kind of people parading around with what looked like curtains or braiding and tassels and God knows what. So it's trying to get our message across. And I think point 12 of the 21 resolutions could be a good one again, but when will it all stop?
Zoom
I see
use.
that Katie is asking to share the 21 resolutions. They're on the WILPF website. I only gave you a very shortened sample, and but I think I mean I'm sure you can find it yourself. But if you look for 1915, the report from The Hague, yeah, there you go, there they are.
Thank you. Thank you,
Well,
Janet.
when we put this talk up on the website, we can make a link to the resolutions so that people can follow it up and read them in full. I've got here Zoom user. Can you identify yourself, Zoom user? And unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello, who are you?
Hello, my name is Rahma, and I am new a feminist.
Welcome.
Thank you. I was in Sweden. I have a member in Sweden feminist. But when I come here, after 5 years, I live here. And I try to become again and be member here in UK. This we talk about today. It was a weaponization. Weaponization and now is normalizing in the world because of war crime is happened. It's happened. We see on our eyes the people who die every day in Sudan, for example, in Palestine, Libya, Lebanon. We must do something more we can do, because we cannot only do coming up on and do demonstration. It is not enough, I think so, because now it's normal, and Israelis go and take it more place in Palestine land and take more Palestinian land and killed people, innocent people, and that is something all we know how is painful for women, children, elder, disabled people. We cannot look. We cannot only doing a demonstration because not enough. I think so. We must come up and do plan maybe and show what's name and politica. That's not enough. Only demonstration, because sometimes demonstrations come and also police and tell you cannot do. You know that? So sometimes it's not enough demonstration.
So what are the things you're suggesting beyond demonstrations?
We must take the part of our politica. So we must go inside when we go and vote, for example, we must try to tell politica, don't sell weapon, because now it's only weapon normalizing. And after it's coming normalizing also, and what is named other one who is chemical?
You mean nuclear?
Nuclear, yes. After normal weapon, who now use Israel or Sudan, is coming after also nuclear. So we must do something. We must do our politica. We must show, must take action for because political we vote. If we no vote, they cannot do anything. You know that? So we must be, when it's coming, vote in time. For example, now it's coming to 2025. We're gonna do vote. We must take action. For example, if you want to vote, you must do what people is good, what all that word, not people only in UK or other place. So I'm not good, I cannot speak good English, but this I'm telling is we must do plan for politica can listen us.
Thank you. Janet, do you want to pick up on any of those points?
Thank you.
I think, unfortunately, the way that our society and our particular government is set up, we're not going to have another opportunity to do anything through voting for quite some time. In Scotland, we've got an election to the Scottish Parliament next year, and I certainly hope that we can utilise that as a means of expressing our disgust and despair at what's going on and our democratic deficit that we're in as women, as Scots, as peace people. And I still do believe that more people want peace than want to profit from war. So it's difficult, but I mean, when the opportunity is there, yes, I think we need to use that the best way we possibly can. But I think that there are other actions that governments take where we can make a difference if we can inform each other and work collectively to remove the consent to what the government is doing. And that is one of the ways that we can peacefully make change. And to some extent, that is a process that is ongoing, but it needs to go further. I think it's become very difficult because some of the things that I feel quite strongly that we should do may make no difference at all. I don't actually know, but I know it makes me feel better doing it. And one of those is that we can actually upset the algorithms of social media if none of us use it between 9 and 9:30 every evening. If there's a sudden major drop in the number of people that are using social media, the algorithms get confused in some weird kind of way that I don't understand, but I'm willing to give it my best shot. You know, I think that's one of the things. Getting to know people that are working with arms companies and talking to them about whether there's other work they could seek, understanding better why they take these jobs, asking them if they would be willing to be active in the workplace, to look for transition to making something a bit better than weapons. These are the kind of things that we can do, and it may seem that is not very much, but very often, if those things kick off and become mass movements, then we can impact directly on what the government is doing. So, I mean, I don't have answers. I just have ways that we can stand together and be on one side in all of this. And in some ways, I think that's as much as we can hope for.
Thank you, Janet. Let's hear from Khadija now.
Hi everyone, it's lovely
Hello,
to see you
Khadija.
all.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I arrived late and I missed the important part, the beginning. And but I really enjoyed what you've just said about the social media, how we can, respond or, try to use it positively to promote peace and, I'm going to listen to this again once it is posted, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot as usual from your presentation today. What I would like to say is, in addition to what you've just said, nowadays there are a lot of, social media led by youth as alternative and as fresh breath, as they say, like the Teo or the Turn Left, or there are so many alternatives to the mainstream media, which is really, not standing with the people, and with peace or with truth to power. So I just want to point out to that. What I would like to ask is WILPF responding, or is WILPF going to respond to what the US president, said regarding Francesca Albanese to sanction her and so on? Because she's really inspiring a lot. She speaks, truth to power, and, she's factual, she's for peace, she's for, real human rights. And I just want to ask if WILPF is planning to issue a statement or anything to support Francesca, who is really inspiring, brave and courageous women like you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khadija. This is something I don't know about. Janet or Fiona, have you got something to say about that?
I must admit, I did read something about this. I got an email about the situation from an organization called Stop Trump. And exactly as Khadija is saying, Trump is moving to sanction this woman simply for speaking truth to power. And I'm not sure, however, if some of our sisters in WILPF USA might be doing some kind of statement, because it's, it's happening in their land. Do you know what I mean? It's I can maybe find what I got and share it with the executive, because it is one of these things that Trump is just, as usual, opening his mouth and letting his belly rumble, but it's dangerous, and it's making it dangerous for this woman.
Is she the special rapporteur for? Yes. Well,
yeah.
I hadn't heard
and
that
she's
was.
been, Trump has just torn the book up on that and said, no, she's not anybody important, ignore her, and I'm going to sack her, or what. It's very interesting, because actually just before I came into this meeting, some of you may know, or if you were in Scotland in 2018, you might remember my friend Anthony from the US, who came and helped us with the international, we had a big international week in Scotland to celebrate the treaty getting the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm still very much in touch with Anthony, and Anthony has just sent me a little clip of an American, it was actually one of the Veterans for Peace, who this morning went and threw cow blood all over the front of the US embassy, which is directly across the road from the UN building. And Anthony's got film of him doing it. It's kind completely. It's very, very flagrant, and it's in a very high profile place. So yes, I hope we can do a statement. And
well, I think we should follow it up, because it should be done at international level.
Yes,
because
the Americans have probably done it.
Yes, okay.
And
well, Fiona, we could find that out, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could.
And pursue it at international level, because something that's internal to the United States would be for the United States, but if she's the United Nations rapporteur, then it's for all of us.
It's international.
Yes. So let's see if we can find out for Khadija and make sure there is a statement. Thank you for raising that. I've got Jenny now with her hand up.
Hello. First, I want to say a very big thank you to Janet, because it's just so good to hear what you have to say. Your take on the 21 resolutions are extremely important at this time, I feel. And I just wanted to say that we're having vigils weekly down here in Brighton, as women in black ones, and as there are all over in many places, I know. And what we've found is that there are several weeks will go by without anybody coming along telling us that we're wasting our time and should go and get a job and all those kind of comments that people make. And most people are agreeing with us. The people who stop are agreeing with us, and many of them are very glad to actually have somebody to talk to about it, because often people feel isolated. We're also getting people recognize that we are there each week, and we've had comments from people saying it's good to see you here every week, which is really interesting. It feels almost like we're part of sort of some kind of social service for people to come and express their opinions about what's going on in the world in all sorts of different areas. The other thing is we have there's a part of an arms factory, an arms part factory on the outskirts of Brighton, and many people in Brighton don't know about it, because obviously they don't make much of a fuss about, they don't make much of a notice of advertisement about it, because they know there's a lot of action against it. There's a coalition of which we're part to try and get rid of this company. And again, back to the women in black, and our WILPF stalls, we're telling people about it, and that's been useful too. And finally, I wanted to ask a question just to clarify. I believe that our weapons sales in this country are either the first or the second biggest money makers for this country. It's either our first or second biggest industry. I wonder if anybody can enlighten me on that, if that's correct.
I think you're right about that. I think it is the biggest, but it was probably worth getting confirmation of that from Kirsten Bays at CAT.
Yes, CAT. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
but that would be extremely useful. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, that would be a very good fact to be able to drop into these kind of conversations.
Oh, yeah,
I would like to also just affirm your experience, because I mean, today we had about a dozen people came into the shop at different points during the course of the day, just to say, I'm so glad you're here,
yeah.
It's so nice to get, and some of them stop and have a cup of coffee, pick up a magazine or something. Some of them will just have a bit of a chat, or, but there's definitely been a huge upturn in the daily footfall of people that aren't coming in for a particular reason,
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
Another comment? we've now got 2 women in black vigils in London. The Wednesday one, which we've been doing forever, it's not always on Israel-Palestine. We do cover other things like, for instance, the upcoming arms fair that Helen mentioned. But on Saturday, there is a vigil that's been going on that was started by North London women, mainly Jewish women, and it's run by a Jewish Israeli woman, and she produces a lot of cardboard placards, which brings along so you don't have to store your placards or leave them anywhere and so on. And that's held in the middle of the day on a Saturday from 12 to 1, and it's outside the main Friends Meeting House in London, opposite Euston Station, which is a very good vantage point. And we do get a very good response there, and a bigger vigil, because there are women who come only to that vigil, as well as us women from the Wednesday vigil, which Khadija mentioned, which is at Wednesday at the Edith Cavell statue at the top of Trafalgar Square from 6 to 7 every Wednesday. And by doing something, by setting your timetable so that there is something in the week that you can manage to do that is manageable for you, then that is a positive. And I always wear my Palestinian scarf. And it's interesting when you're going around London, you get people stopping you and saying, "Thank you for wearing the scarf," you know? They don't know that I've been to a vigil or anything, but you do get people commenting, smiling at you, even if they don't say anything, and so on. So there's always some little action, even when you're old and immobile, as some of us are becoming. Now, we are coming up to the last 5 minutes, so I'd like to encourage anyone who's got something to contribute or ask Janet before I ask Janet to do any winding up that she wants to do. So here's your last chance to put up your hands. Anyone? Janet, do you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you
Khadija.
so much for inspiring us all. I know I haven't been very active. I had a little bit of, personal issues and so on, but, you always inspire me and many women. And yeah, thank you so much for what you do, all of
Well,
you.
that's really good to hear, and good to see you again, Khadija. It's a great, it boosts us. Thank you. So, Janet,
I think, Sheila, that I just would like to say that it's so cheering to find myself in this company. And I've done a few things recently that have just made me very grateful for the people I know and the friends that I have in the peace movement. And we all completely depend on each other.
absolutely.
And I know I can be quite active, but I can also be quite absent from time to time. And or I go one place and then I'm obsessed with that and have to miss other things and so on. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to sound off some of what I think about it, and to see friendly WILP faces, and to know that I don't need to explain the basics of why patriarchy is a bad idea, you know. Don't need to explain any of that in this room, you know. So it's been very cheering and helpful to me, because I think all of us are finding these times very difficult to get through, you know. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for having me as the
well, absolutely. Thank you to you.
Yeah.
And you, as others have said, you've been a real inspiration and got us moving. Before I close, can I ask Hannah where you're from?
Is it in the chat? She's just saying she'll share the
resolutions. Yes. Yeah.
That's fine.
Her name is Rahma. Rahma, she said.
Where are you from? I think, well, don't worry. I just thought that we had some internationals with us. And if you are from outside the UK, do make yourself known, because we're very glad to welcome you and thank you for attending. So thank you, all of you. It's been lovely to see you, and we've had an inspiring, really inspiring talk and good and interesting conversation. So until the next, oh, here we are, Hannah.
Copenhagen.
She's from Copenhagen. Yes. Good. Kelly.
And Kelly is from Global.
Lovely. Very good to have you. Yeah. Please, we're very, very keen to be international and to share any ideas we have. So lovely to see you all. Goodbye until our next webinar.
I'm just putting my email in the chat, which I meant to do earlier.
Which is?
So I've just in case anybody wants to get in touch. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. That's great, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Janet.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
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 Good to see you.
Well done, everybody. Stop the meeting. Wait a minute. End. Right. Yes, I can end the meeting for all. I've just discovered how to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
No, well done, Janet. That was really great.
Okay. Well,
thank you for that.
Thanks for the support.
Really super. And you know, and then we can share your slides with everybody, and we'll get your slides up on our website as well. So you know, that's. And
it'd be great to get the recording, and
we'll get the recording. Yeah, and now I can
try and do something
stop
with
recording.
the Scottish group.